ultimately, though, I think if Tim could be here today and sort of course correct part of his journey, he was, and I feel sort of weird saying this because I do, love him so much and admire his work so much, but he was anti-authoritarian to a fault. If you're going to ride that wave and that's your horse and you're going to bet on that horse all the way through, and he never never switched horses, that's a pretty, that's a lot of heavy stuff to keep riding on.
Right.
And to kind of juxtapose yourself with that in society, to take that place. It's just anti-authoritarian. Whereas, I'm sorry, we keep going back to Ron Musk because you and I are both fresh off of this retreat, but whereas like the merging into the one and kind of seeing the God in everyone standpoint or point of view is as just as much, if not more, productive credibility to it in the long run.
Sure. Right. Yeah, sure. Well, you're going to run a lot longer on that fuel for sure.
Yeah.
Now, so here's my question.
Yeah.
When I was a kid growing up and I first encountered LSD, which was one of the greatest things that ever happened to me, I had to hide that from my parents.
Okay.
What about you?
I did at the beginning.
You had to hide it?
At the very beginning, I did. Yeah. I started getting into the Grateful Dead when I was about 14.
Yeah.
And despite what everybody thinks, Tim was not, he was not pro-drug for, pre-adolescent, young prepubescent kids. That was not okay. So at the very beginning, I had to hide it. I probably started tripping a little too young, smoking pot regularly, probably a little too young.
What were the reasons behind him not wanting? Because it seems like classically kids are taking psychedelics around 15, 16, 14's pretty young.
Pretty young. You're just not ready yet. Your brain just hasn't developed. It's just it's a physiological thing. You don't have the brain mass and the experiential intelligence, the experiential and emotional intelligence to really carry the weight of what these substances can do. And he knew that, and he was lovingly trying to guide me in that direction. But the wheels finally fell off. And then he just was like, fuck it. Okay, I'll join you. And when I was about 16 is when we
took acid together.
Yeah.
So that's so funny. So you actually, Tim Leary's your dad, and you had to be like, no, man, we just, hung out last night, Dad. No, we didn't. Did he ever ask, like, are you taking drugs? He must have known.
Yeah, of course. But now and then I think my mom would kind of do a, what do they call it in prison? They come and toss up your cell. My mom would kind of do that, come into my room, toss up my cell, tear my shit up.
That is crazy.
Try to find my drugs.
That is so funny. See, this is like, that's so funny to imagine.
Yeah.
Tim Leary, tune in, turn on, drop out, having to be faced with one of the byproducts of his work, which is that his son is sneaking out to take acid.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, we have time for a story. This is a podcast. Actually, the first time, this is actually a really good story, and there's a little bit of a lesson in it. The first time I actually ever smoked pot with him, last day of junior high school. My mom was out of town. I remember she was in the Bahamas visiting some friends. Just me and my dad. Ram Dass came over. He was staying at our house that night.
Wow.
And last day of the day after, so it was the night before the last day of ninth grade, which in LA is a separation between junior high and high school, different schools. And at that point, I was smoking pot. So me, Ram Dass, my dad were kind of hanging out in the living room, and Ram Dass was like, "Give him a break. Let's just smoke it with him. Let's just do it. It's going to be okay."
Right.
So we did, and we had this amazing experience. It was this really close, sweet, very kind of paternal and loving, both of them really caring for me as we kind of exchanged the sacred medicine. So we did that. Next day, last day of school, I get up, the carpool person's coming to pick me up, and I see in the ashtray on the coffee table, half a joint left. It's in the ashtray.
Great.
But yeah, both Tim and RD are asleep, so I grab the joint and I take it to school. And last day of school, so in the corner of the playground, me and my friends smoked it.
Yeah.
We got busted. We got busted on the last day. We did. Somebody ratted us out. And then it was the last day of school. So there was nothing they were going to do about it. So they had to call him to come pick me up from school. And he walks into to Emerson Junior High in Westwood, California, and he walks in and he just gives me this look, just shaking his head like, oh my fucking God. And the assistant principal, I remember this very well. His name was Principal Scheer. So Principal Scheer, he was like, oh my God, Timothy Leary is coming to pick up his kid getting busted for pot. This is amazing.
Yeah.
This is so cool.
Hilarious.
He was exactly of the right vintage to really get it. And this guy, and he pulled him aside and he was like, look, someday this may be legal, but that day isn't now.
That's pretty cool.
And all that happened was they wouldn't let me graduate. They wouldn't let me walk the stage at graduation. But we had this, it was this incredible. I mean, I remember the drive home that day, and it was just the 20-minute drive back home from school, and just kind of the air of like, we gave you a shot, man, and you blew it.
Yeah.
And you blew it.
Yeah. But you know what, man? I guarantee in the back of his head, he thinks it's the funniest thing ever.
Yeah.
Because he would have done the same thing. Because he just must be seeing, it's so funny. This is karma. He's getting to see himself in you being reflected in the exact same way. You're the rebel now. You've done it. You've in some tiny little way, you've done what he did throughout his entire life, which is to go to the corner of the playground and get high and get busted for it.
Right.
Really cool.
Yeah.
So